Jens Nilsson here. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, let's talk about real estate, my favorite topic. Today we're going to talk a little bit about single family versus multifamily and why I really prefer to invest in multifamily and the benefits I see in that space. So how do people end up as landlords in the single family space? Well, typically it's what we call accidental landlords. Somebody moved and couldn't sell their house. They may want to, they're going away for a while and they want to keep their old house and they want to rent it out. Maybe they're moving to a bigger place and the old house they want to hang on to and rent it out. That does present some challenges, especially around management. Who are you going to use to find and screen your tenants? Who is going to perform your repairs and maintenance? Who are they going to call in the middle of the night when there's a problem? Are they going to call you and you have to go to the house and fix the broken toilet, or call in a plumber that's going to be an expensive repair? You also deal with the issue of one of everything. By that I mean you have one roof, you have one mechanical system, you have one set of plumbing fixtures, one set of lighting. So it's not very efficient. It's difficult to scale in the sense that if you had 5 single family homes you're renting out, you would have 5 roofs to maintain. You would have 5 water heaters, 5 heating systems, and all that. So you can't even keep any spare parts because they probably won't really work in more than one house. And it's also hard to find good management companies. Some of these smaller companies that are managing single family are not the greatest in terms of responsiveness and just efficiency. They're very expensive. They probably charge anywhere from 10 to 12% of your rent. And they will just call out a plumber or somebody very expensive every time something is broken. And if you have a larger portfolio, it's really hard to manage that. Think about if you had 50 houses in a big city, just the amount of travel back and forth between the various houses, trying to keep them up to date, figuring out what's in every place and overall. So single families are a challenge to manage as a landlord. So therefore, multifamily, why I believe bigger is better. Everything is consolidated in one property. So if you have a 200-unit apartment building, it may be a few individual buildings, but it's all on the common grounds typically. It's easier to scale, and the larger you go, the benefits increase. You can have on-site management, you have professional management, so you typically will hire a professional management company that manages thousands of units to provide the staff, to do all the books, to handle the lease-up process and the tenant screening, and also they'll have the maintenance people. So when something is broken, you don't have to call that plumber that's going to cost you $200 to go and fix the dripping faucet. They'll have somebody on site that can go into the unit and quickly replace it and be much cheaper. So overall, it's much more efficient in terms of scale. And you can have the common repair items. You know, you can have some extra faucets lying around, some lighting fixtures, and other things that may break. And also, banks like to lend larger sums of money. That may sound kind of not intuitive, but the bottom line is that in order for a bank to lend $500,000 or $5 million, it's the same amount of work in terms of the paperwork, but they would make a lot more money on lending $5 million, so they tend to be more keen on larger sums of money. I also believe that multifamily is a safer investment. And by that, it basically comes down to the fact that the larger multifamily are underwritten based on income, how much, you know, the number of units multiplied by the monthly rent. The expenses, you know, what are the expenses there that this property has? Typically 45 to 50% of the norm. And the team that's buying the property, their experience, how many units have they managed and owned, you know, how many years have they been in the business and so forth. And then it's not based on somebody's income. If you buy a single family or small multifamily, it's based upon your income. And you know, for a larger property, that has nothing to do with it. It's really your net worth and your experience that comes into it. Also, these agency loans are favorable. So by agency, I mean Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, these quasi-government institutions. They sponsor these loans, and the government is very bullish on lending money. So you get great interest rates, you get good, 30 years amortization, and maybe your term will be 7 to 10 years. And the interest rate is often 0.5 to 1% less than banks. So that really helps you increase your value and income. Quite often you also can negotiate an interest-only period. So for the first year, 2 or 3 years, you only pay interest, further improving the return on the property. Some of the other benefits to multifamily is how turnover and vacancy impacts the profitability. One vacancy in a single family is really 100% vacancy in that property. So if somebody moves out, you gotta turn the unit, meaning like paint it and do any upgrades and fixes they need to do. And while you're doing that, if you have no tenant in there paying rent, you still have to pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. So it very quickly eats into the bottom line. On the other hand, if you had a 200-unit apartment building and you had one vacancy there, you only really have 0.5% of vacancy. So that really quickly illustrates the point about how the vacancy rate can really impact your profitability. And also you can force the value by improving the property on a multifamily. And in later webinars, I'm going to go into more of the key financial figures here. But here we really talk about how the property is valued based on income and a cap rate. And a cap rate is a capitalization rate in the market, and that's something we'll talk about later. But if you go in and take an older property, you renovate the units, and you can raise your rent. Say you have 200 units, you raise the rent by $100, and the market cap is 6%. For 200 units, you really in 1 year can increase the value by $2 million. Let me repeat that. If you can increase the rent by $100 in a 200 unit property, you can increase the value by $2 million in a 6 cap. So that is a tremendous upside you have in these properties. So that was a short little overview over why I really strongly believe that multifamily is the way to go versus single family. Again, if you have any questions, be free to email me at jens@opendoorscapital.com. Check out our website and comment below if you have any feedback. Next week, we're going to talk about your team. Who are the key team members you need to have to be successful in this business?